Looking for some inspiration? You've come to the right show. Step into your divine feminine energy with me as I spill the tea on leadership in life. Hi, I'm Tracy M., your host here on Brave Girls, and I've got your back, and no mean girls are allowed. I've been called the fairy godmother of storytelling, and my gift is to unearth people's stories, share them, and make the world a better place for all of us. So sit back, relax, and listen in as we send some more positive vibes out into the universe. Enjoy the show. Today, I'm super excited to have Patrice Bullock on the show, Brave Girls with Tracy M. I have been watching her from afar for several years through my affiliation with the American Heart Association, and I just couldn't think of a better person to have on my reboot series this season. And so, Patrice, welcome to the show. I really would like you to share a little bit about you, how you came into this world thinking you were going to do one thing, you were a mom, and then you had a personal tragedy that you really have turned into your mission around public safety, community health, and legislative reform. And so I'm just going to turn it over to you to tell us a little bit about Patrice, and then if you could just share in your role as executive director of Bailey's Heart and Soul Foundation, a little bit about what that is and the success that you had in the legislative session with the Bullock Act that was passed in Maryland. So take it away, Patrice.
Sure, absolutely. So thank you so much for having me. And yes, you never know what's your passion or just the direction that your dreams in life will take you. My background, I've been a nurse for 25 plus years. I'm also a nursing home administrator, and I'm also a family nurse practitioner. So as you can imagine, my desire, my dream, my background was just to explore in one of those career paths. However, unfortunately, before I even go further, I'm also a mother for, I do have a set of twins, Brianna and Brandon, my oldest Benjamin, and my youngest, of course, is Bailey. On May 12, 2021, of course, my dreams and the pathway that I thought the stars had in store for me changed. We lost Bailey. At the time, he was 16 to sudden cardiac arrest. On May 12, 2021, CPR was delayed for over 8 minutes and 45 seconds after Bailey completed a track meet at his local high school. CPR was not started. In hindsight, when I look back at that day, May 12, 2021, my initial response was my day, my life, my pathway stopped. Basically, the sun stopped shining, the moon stopped shining, right? But the deeper inner aspect of me brought to light that there's something that needs to be shed, something that needs to be taught, to be shared with the community from Bailey's story. Sudden cardiac arrest does not discriminate. It can happen to anyone. Unfortunately, young athletes, youth athletes are at risk for sudden cardiac arrest. And needless not to say, minority individuals are also at risk for sudden cardiac arrest. And unfortunately, on that day, May 12, 2021, bystanders were present. And that's the gruesome part of this story, that no one helped Bailey. And because of that, I know the world is a better place, and I would like to bring attention to this tragedy, but how a tragedy from a place that's actually grieving every day, can actually become a purpose of passion, turning pain into purpose and purpose into passion. Again, I never thought that my life would turn into advocating for community safety for kids, educating, and also using evidence-based practices to make a difference. Out of Bailey's tragedy, the Bailey's Heart and Soul Foundation was formed. And pretty much our mission is simple: to advocate, to educate, and to use evidence-based practices to decrease sudden cardiac arrest and mortality in youth athletes, children, adolescent, school-age children. But not only that, sudden cardiac arrest can also impact the older population. So again, to make this a community initiative, so people know the importance of why it's important to learn CPR and the use of an AED. Responding to sudden cardiac arrest or to heart death, literally, minutes make a difference between life and death. And so it's just important for individuals to know the chain of survival and bystanders to know what role they actually play in saving someone's life. Since 2021, we have taught over 1,500 CPR and AED demonstration. We have done demonstration with school-age children, and we have done the certification for those individuals who would like to learn the American Heart Association Heart Saver CPR course, whether or not that's for adults, infants, or the school-age children. In addition, we have also ramped up the mission of the foundation by conducting heart screening. And so with the heart screening, we're using EKGs and we're using echocardiograms, partnering with physicians, cardiologists, local stakeholders for individuals who are not able to afford EKGs and echocardiograms. Of course, we do know the role that insurance play in all of these decisions, right? If you have a pre-existing condition, then of course the insurance will cover pre-participation screening as a part of a physical for a young athlete. But again, if there's no existing cost, then a physical is just quick 10 minutes, one and done, and does not necessarily explore incorporating echocardiograms and EKGs. So as a part of our free and low-cost screening, we do incorporate these additional additives for those young athletes, because we really want for them to play their best sport with strong heart, right? So far for this year, we have done approximately 120 screenings, and 6% of those kids were referred for additional follow-up. That sounds like a small number, but just take it from someone who has lost a child to sudden cardiac arrest. Saving one life is great. And that's basically our main goal. Our purpose is just to make that one difference in the life of a mother, a life of a dad, a life of, siblings, friends, just by saving a child's life, or just making a difference to catch a potential condition that could be devastating, to basically interject and to use medical technology to identify those individuals at risk, especially our young athletes, because we see them out there on the sports field and we know that they're playing with passion and they all want to go on to the next level, right? But we really need to ensure that we're also protecting their hearts.
So what specifically did the Bailey-Bullock Act in Maryland accomplish or legislate or recommend, or all the things?
So the Bailey-Bullock Act was passed and signed in 2024 by Governor Westmore here in Maryland. And what that act does is to ensure that cardiac emergency response programs are in schools, both for public and private, middle and high schools. Bailey attended a private school, so it was really important that the act was not necessarily focused on those schools that were public, but also private. So having cardiac emergency response programs in place. And if someone says, hey, what does that mean? Plain and simple, having drills, having plans, having tools, not just a checkbox, but one that's rehearsed, probably at the beginning of each school season, at least twice per year. So when there is a cardiac medical emergency, people know how to respond, that they're not freezing, they're not standing, they're being panicked. EMS takes approximately 10 minutes, and especially depending on what traffic looks like on that day, the sun, is it raining, is it snowing, then their commute time to that location may take longer. So in the meantime, what are the bystanders doing? What are the school administrative personnel doing? What are the coaches doing? Where's the AED? Are they performing high quality CPR? Not just a compression, but are they doing those chest compressions that's going down 2 inches deep, 100 to 120 compressions? So the Bailey-Bullock Act ensure that schools here in Maryland, that they do have that action plan in place. So as a mom and someone who is so passionate, and of course, being connected to Bailey, I in turn partner with a variety of schools here in Maryland and go out to the schools, especially during Heart Awareness Month, doing CPR demonstrations with those kids. It's just a pleasure going to high schools and just seeing those kids actually doing those demonstration and just acting as though they're, these are real life situations, because they're taking it so seriously, knowing that their goal is to try and to save a life. So the Bailey-Bullock Act in a nutshell remind us of the drills and the implementation plans that schools should have in place, and not just to say we have it, but did we increase our number of AEDs? Are we now practicing what our drills should look like? Do we have a protocol in place? Not a protocol that's going to be 10 pages long that no one knows how to read, but something that's simple, that's going to say, in case this happens, this is what we're going to do. This is where our AEDs are located. Who is checking the AEDs? Are the batteries intact? Are the pads intact? Are they expired? Not only that, who comes out from a higher level and check to say, yes, that AED is good and ready to go. But again, having those drills in place, so when there are emergencies, kids do know how to respond. My heart does well when I see, for example, I believe like a bus incident or something, and the bus driver knows exactly what to do. That's based on the emergency drill that he practiced, that he was then able to implement. Similar with the Bailey-Bullock Act, cardiac emergency, if we're practicing these drills, how to do CPR, how to grab the AED, who is actually going to wait for that EMS when they do arrive, so they're not on the compound circling, trying to figure out exactly where that emergency is. So the Bailey-Bullock Act just fine-tuned having a plan, but it's not for schools to say, yes, we know the Bailey-Bullock Act. It's, did we implement the Bailey-Bullock Act? So I do work closely with the American Heart Association here at the grassroots level in Maryland by reaching out to those schools. And I do have a list of schools that's on my list to say, hey, what is your AED looking like? Who is CPR certified? Can I come out and share Bailey's story? Not just sharing the story, but also having a day that's just dedicated to CPR demonstration. In addition, can we take that to the next level where we're actually going out to the schools and then doing the heart screenings? Because with transportation, sometimes it can be difficult if those screenings are done on the off hours, on weekends. How are we meeting those kids and parents at their level? In addition, I mentioned earlier that we had 6% that needed follow-up, but after the screening, do we follow up with those parents? Hey, how are things going? Were you able to follow up with your primary care provider? Were you able to follow up with any additional recommendations that your primary care provider shared with you?
Got it. Got it. So, in researching you and Bailey, I had a little bit of a chill moment because I ran track at that high school that happened to Bailey. So I feel like that was a God moment. There's no coincidences, right? And so
Yeah.
I did not know that when I met you. And when I got to your webpage and I was like, wait, he grew up where? Wait, he went where? Wait, he rode and tracked. And I played 3 sports at that. Well, I played 4 sports actually at that school and went on to be a collegiate athlete. And I did not know that I had a genetic heart condition until I was 58. And the cardiologist that I went to when I discovered this told me that I was extremely lucky that I didn't have sudden cardiac arrest because of my condition and because I was a competitive athlete. And so I love that you're doing the screenings because, again, I was somebody that I was athletic. I didn't get an EKG. I didn't get an EEG. I got the 10-minute, you're fine, move along. And it really wasn't until my mom learned that she had this genetic heart condition that her cardiologist said, this is genetic. Your daughters should run to the cardiologist to make sure that they have, and they said, have they had cardiac arrest? And neither one of us had. Now, I had a lot of fainting spells, which was a symptom, and it was just, ignored, or maybe she's dehydrated, but that had been happening my whole entire life, and at that high school. And so when I look back, I was really spared. And the one question I was going to ask you is, so in the fundraising that you do, does that help schools who don't have the funds to buy an AED, or those types of things? Or, is that kind of an extension of all of this, like the roadblocks that organizations may have to implementing what you want them to, and then making it easier for them? Is that part of it?
So yes, so we do several fundraising events, and thanks for asking that question. So we do a bingo for Bailey, which is right around Bailey's birthday. We also do a bull roast in May, which is Bailey's anniversary. And then in October, which is sudden cardiac arrest month, we do a 5K, which ties in with the demise of Bailey's sudden cardiac arrest. And we also do a golf tournament. So those events, yes, the purpose is to support the mission of the foundation, the CPR, the heart screenings, and the AED. And we also ask, for sponsors, donations, monthly recurring donations, just anything that can actually assist with the CPR, the AED training, or to sponsor an AED.
Mm-hmm. So when this happened to him, you said there was these bystanders, was it a combination of there was no AED and the bystanders weren't trained in CPR? Was it a combination of that?
So if I could just go back to May 12, 2021, Bailey had finished his track event, and he was sitting down, and you could tell that after the event, similar to you mentioning the fainting and the dizziness, after running the track, you could tell that Bailey was not feeling well. So again, no one asked, are you feeling, how are you? I mean, a typical 16-year-old at the time, everything, I'm fine. But, someone really needs, hey, you're not looking yourself. Is everything okay? So an area of opportunity was definitely missed there.
Right.
And of course, once Bailey collapsed, someone from one of his peers saw that he went down, went to the front entrance of the school to basically alert the security personnel, who traditionally would be sitting at the door, because campus activity was still relatively high. It was roughly 4 o'clock in the evening. And so that student spent a lot of time trying to get someone to answer the door. No one responded. And, you could tell that he's looking back at Bailey. Bailey's laying there.
Right.
The crowd, started generating, circling around Bailey. Then the pair was then able to go to the side entrance of the school, and coach personnel came out and basically stood there again. So now not only the bystanders are just watching my child, but now the coach is not standing there looking at my child. And so finally, I believe a parent said something to the coach. What was said, I don't know. But the coach at that point alerted another school personnel to go and get the AED. So
it wasn't even on the field. Okay.
Right.
Is that one of your recommendations though? We got to imagine that's one of your recommendations,
So
is to have the AED in the
accessible. AEDs should be accessible. So
yeah.
Bailey was not directly on the field because he had just finished running his track event.
Correct.
Actually sitting outside of the front of the school on one of their blocks, but it was still
Right.
And yeah.
Know it well. Know it well.
Okay.
I've sat on those blocks.
Exactly. And so the AED was locked and tucked away in the school. And I think, one of the things that I still continue to navigate in my own little brain is why was the AED tucked away? But not only that, why no one started CPR? So once the school personnel went to retrieve the AED, CPR was still not started. So now, not only 1 minute, not just 2 minutes, but now you're telling me 8 minutes went by. And that's when the AED came out at that 8 minute window. That's when someone finally rolled my child over from his side onto his back. And then at that point, decide to apply the AED. Still has not started CPR. So basically, they just missed the chain of survival and the window completely.
Yeah. So I think, and that's a big part of your mission, right? Is educating people on those protocols. And I think there's no coincidences that you are a nurse practitioner. There's no coincidences that you have all this clinical background. There's no coincidence that you understand community health. There's like, I feel like, while you probably thought you were going down this, clinical path of nursing and, medical clinical stuff, it's a blessing because you're able to bring all of that knowledge forward to those of us who really don't know. We just don't know. Right. And so
you're giving me chills right now. So it's a blessing. So the main reason why I actually got my NP was so that once Bailey graduated from high school, because as a mom, I was 1,000% convinced that he was going to play sports at the next level. And so with me having a role such as an NP, I could basically go wherever he goes to school. And I would be able to work a part-time position, not to work a full-time position. So not to use my administrative degree that I do have, or my administrator's
license,
but to be able to attend to his next level of growing up and exploring what his next life would look like, and being able to work part-time, but not knowing that really that was just preparing me for another life, another mission, one that wasn't necessarily within my trajectory that I, was planning for. So,
well, props to you for pivoting, and I'm sure every day is really hard. It has to be. However, I feel like you've taken your pain and you're serving others through that experience, that pain, because, and you said this in the beginning, you don't want any other mother to go through this, or father or sister or brother, right? And so you're shining a light on things that the light really hasn't been on consistently with these youth athletes and their parents and their coaches and their trainers. And really, it's through that education and this legislative reform, it's sort of it's an imperative, right? Like it just isn't a choice anymore to stay in the dark and not know what's what.
Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. When Bailey passed away from sudden cardiac arrest, and just trying to get the initiative, the mission, the awareness out there, people weren't necessarily listening, right? But then,
of course not. Yeah, it's like pushing a boulder. You were like pushing a boulder up a hill.
Yes, and then not only that, as a mom, as a woman coming into a male domineering sport, and says, hey, we need to protect their hearts. Hey, we need to look at the physical aspect. Hey, when a child says, hey, I'm not feeling well, allow that child to advocate for his or herself, and not that the child may not just want to participate that day. No, there might be something else that's going on. And, it's good to communicate that back to the parent to say, hey, Bailey didn't run track today, said he didn't feel well, something you may want to look into. But again, it's so important for these youth athletes to be able to advocate for themselves. And even though everyone wants to, of course, excel in their sports of choice, we want to make sure that that's being done in a healthy manner. Once Ronnie James and Damar Hamlin, their sudden cardiac arrest demise created more of a spotlight, then of course I think that's when individuals started to say, oh yes,
it's real. Yeah, it's
this
real.
is real, right? But as a mom, it shouldn't necessarily take a global platform for us to realize in our own community at the grassroots level that if there's an issue and it needs to be brought to the forefront, then as a community, school community, we also need to take those initiatives. But thankfully, we were able to learn from a greater platform perspective. And so now sudden cardiac arrest is much more a dinner table discussion versus a taboo like it had in the past.
What's been the response from the like the athletes, like the these competitive high school athletes that see themselves going to like a D1 school and then on to the NFL or NBA or whatever, as you've gone out to these different schools and you've taught them CPR and you've taught them about just all of this and the importance of screening, the importance of advocating for yourself, like what's their response been? And then also what's been the response of the coaching community? Two key stakeholders in making this work.
So there's still more work that needs to be done.
With both. Yeah, with both.
Yes, there's still work that needs to be done, both with the school athletes and coaches. Some coaches, they are reaching out for the screens. For example, within the last 2 weeks, we did a lacrosse screening. So you do have some schools that are definitely reaching some coaches. But again, not as a community level, but we also have a heart screening for the Baltimore County school that's coming up in June. And so we're getting there. Again, the Bullock Act was passed in 2024. So it's relatively still new. And so, yes, it's relatively still new. So we're still working and getting there.
Do you have elected officials that have gotten behind this and so that they can push forward in their sort of service territories, constituent areas or whatever, and partner with like the superintendents and the athletic directors for the county and stuff like that? Like, is that part of your strategy to form those partnerships, at the right level to then drive it down as sort of like, yeah, we're just going to do this and get ourselves as like to the blue ribbon state of compliance and all the things, right? And it just becomes embedded in how we do sports in those high schools, middle schools, communities.
Yeah, so I can definitely say that the our local health department is behind the Bullock Act. We have several hospitals here in Maryland. Our chief cardiologist that works with the Bailey's Heart and Soul Foundation is out of the University of Maryland. So we're actually working on embracing and collaborating with those stakeholders to get to the next level. So we're getting there.
Well, yeah, Rome isn't built in a day, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's monumental that you got something through the legislature and that you've been able to, and these days I feel like data is what you need to tell people that are on a burning platform. And so I love that, so in your sort of introductory remarks, you're like, we've done 1,500 CPR demos. We've done 120 heart screenings. 6% of those people got referred for follow-up, right? EMS takes 10 minutes to arrive. Like all the things that, like the more you can ground it in, hey, here's the facts. Like you can't dispute the facts, right? And I want to have you back on the show when you say, you know what, Tracy, every high school in our state has an AED that is on the field. Somebody knows how to use it. The players know how to, what needs to happen in that critical window. Like to me, that's when we know we've moved the needle on that awareness, understanding, engagement, and commitment, right? Because you're trying to get people to commit to this. And it's different than in the past, which is I mean, I know I was told just sit down, drink some water, like after I fainted, right? I was never even felt comfortable advocating that, like, hey, I think something else is going on. It's not just I ate something bad. It was no, I had overexerted myself and sent myself into this heart arrhythmia situation that I didn't even know what was going on. And, just kind of and you're taught as an athlete to just kind of dust it off, pick yourself up, keep going, like buckle, like my dad used to say stuff to me and my sister. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh, this is horrible. But it was sort of like, put your big girl panties on and just get back on the field, right? Like get over yourself. And
Right.
so that whole mindset and mentality, especially if you're trying for that inner excellence as an athlete, it goes kind of counter. Like, no, we need to take a beat, listen to what's going on, provide those resources, dig a little deeper, go to the root cause, and not just pass it off.
Right. It was more be tough.
Yeah, be tough. Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
It was like,
totally.
get going, go faster, versus,
Yes.
that child really need to advocate for his or herself. If a parent asks me what I would do differently, that's definitely my verb. Teach
Hmm.
your child how to advocate for his or herself, or encourage them to advocate more for themselves versus being in compliance. Coach say to be a doer, do this, so I'm going to do
Hmm.
it. Run of lap in X amount of time, so I need
Completely.
order. So hey, I'm going to enhance on that kind of performance. Bailey would actually run from where we currently live to the high school just to increase his stamina and his
Capacity. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so, as a young athlete, you're driving to excel at the next level. But I think it's realizing what's more precious, what's more important, definitely, having your child with you than
Hmm.
child, dying from something that could have from a preventable cause. Yeah.
Hmm. So, if people are in other states or countries even listening to this, um, and they're curious about, how to do what you did, right, over the last 4 or 5 years. I'll share in the show notes your link, and is the best way to just contact you through the form on your website for Bailey's Foundation.
Yeah, so on Bailey's Heart and Soul Foundation, there's a contact. You can just put your information there and it drives it right to the organization's email, and I will be able to respond timely.
Okay, that's great. And then, how are your other children doing? Are they also athletes? Like, how did this impact them?
So at the time on May 12th, 2021, my twin daughter, Brianna, at the time was attending Northeastern University. So she was home
Okay.
for my birthday and Mother's Day. So everything happens in May. So now
Mhm.
May is like the worst month because we have Bailey's anniversary, have my
Mhm.
birthday, and then of course you
The
have
bull roast.
Mother's Day. Yes,
And let's just throw bull roast in there. There's enough
exactly.
going on.
Right, exactly. So as a unit and as a family, my name for the bees were like the four B's.
Hmm.
So if I'm
Yep.
doing a group text, I was like texting the four B's.
Yeah.
But definitely I can say tragedy as a family has brought our unit together stronger, uh,
Hmm.
much more close knit. We were super close knit before. And that's one of the
Right.
reasons why Brianna was on, because she doesn't miss a Mother's Day. She doesn't miss a birthday.
Hmm.
On Brianna was like a second mom to Bailey. So
Okay.
yeah, she was like a second mom to Bailey. So she took off one semester from school. She was actually on a gap year, and I was like, girl, you need to just go ahead and graduate. So I did, yes. I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, just go ahead and graduate. So she took off a gap year, and then um able to focus. And I think just knowing that Bailey's no longer with us we all wear a thumbprint. I'm sure you cannot see it, but it's
Oh, I love
really,
it.
yes. So this is like a way to remind us life is short. Um, I always say
Mhm.
to parents, your kids have a way to express themselves. They may not express it the way that we would like for them to, but it's best just to hear them out. You never know what will happen, what can happen.
Mhm.
My daughter, she lives in Boston.
Mhm.
She has also championed getting CPR certified. She would like to be a CPR instructor, even though she's an engineer.
Mhm.
Um, her twin brother is an engineer, and my oldest is an engineer. So they have all used tragedy to
Mhm.
make them stronger.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just tough. It's really tough. But I'm so inspired that you've been able to kind of pull all this off. And I'm so excited about where this is going to go. Um, and just for so many people, I just visualize all the people that this can impact, from the families, the athletes, the schools, the community, really. Um, and so I think this is just, yeah, I mean, I love seeing kind of organically how you've evolved all of this, and how I know I listened to your speech, I think it was last year, maybe at the American Heart Women of Impact. And because I was the first woman of impact to pilot for the Maryland chapter, the American Heart program, which now it makes me smile, because I was the only one that proved out the concept for them, and, you know, raised my money and did all the things. And then to see where that program has gone in the time since I did it, and then to now see a friend of mine, her son was a teen of impact, and to see how that has just, it's like a ripple effect. And I feel like the Bailey's Heart and Soul Foundation is a ripple effect, right? Um, and I think it's almost like a flywheel, as more and more things around heart health get, like you said, discussed out in the open, like education, awareness, training, like all the things that have to happen so that we can have conversations that we need to have, right? And so I feel like you're like just a piece and a part of that bigger mission around heart health, and what, more people need to be aware of. And your talk was just, I mean, I was just blown away, because I didn't know. I remember when it happened, but I don't live near that school anymore. And so, I hear things here and there, but like, I thought it was at a different school when you were talking about it. It really wasn't until I started looking at it and I went, what the what? I'm like, he was on the same track as me, like at the same high school. Like, there are no coincidences here. And, yeah, so I just, so you've done a lot of things in your life, but honestly, what is the bravest thing that you've ever done, and kind of how does that inspire you today?
The bravest thing that I've ever done is really taking this tragedy, losing Bailey. Bailey to me, my youngest child. The other kids at the time, they were away in college. So
Mm-hmm.
Bailey was sort of like my partner in crime.
Right.
So the bravest thing that I've ever done, and I prior to this was definitely a shy person. It
Oh, who knew?
Yes. Yes. Prior to this, I was definitely a shy person. Um, but when you love someone that's connected to you as a mom, you do not take this tragedy. For me personally, standing, lying down, it was like, no, Bailey's story must be told. Um, his mission, his goal must continue. Bailey might have left us, but there's just so many individuals who will learn who will be impacted in a positive way from
Mm-hmm.
Bailey's story. And so that has become my personal embodiment. It's not the degrees that I have. It's not the career path that the career path that I've taken. It's my mission for Bailey. Um, you're sort of like mourning his, what would he become? Now
Mm-hmm.
he would be a junior in college.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the next 4 years be like? So, and how can you impact others? Um,
Mm-hmm.
one of the ways that we also assist other young athletes or just high schoolers to embody that spirit of Bailey, the leadership qualities and the characters that Bailey
Mm-hmm.
had, is we also have a scholarship fund in Bailey's honor. So,
Okay.
yes, so the scholarship actually opens up on Bailey's birthday. So
Mm-hmm.
everything that I've done thus far for Bailey, it's intentional. As I mentioned earlier, the bingo is in January, Bailey's birthday. That's when the scholarship opens up, and then the
Okay.
scholarship closes in April. And so May, which is Bailey's anniversary, at the bingo, I meant at the bull rose, we
Uh-huh.
recognize those individuals who are recipients of a variety of the Bailey's Heart and Soul scholarships. So not only to make a difference in the heart health of individuals, but also
Right.
their career pathway. Because again, I was certainly probably the proudest mom that you could ever imagine. I was definitely looking to the next level of Bailey
Mm-hmm.
and just to see how he would blend in with the other three kids. Even though I know he had his own pathway and he was sassy, but just to see, what
Mm-hmm.
that with that sassiness about him as to how, what he would have gone on to accomplish. So we also try to assist young students,
Mm-hmm.
high school seniors to
Mm-hmm.
move on to that next level.
And so there's a page on your website about the scholarship. So I'll include that if anyone's interested in learning more about the application process or wants to donate, kind of what the focus is, the eligibility criteria, and then yeah, it'll be interesting to track to like people who may win this scholarship and what it enables them to do. And like as an alumni scholarship winner and the community that you're going to create around that, um, because this may be the leg up that they need to get them to their next level, right? And that is very generous and very it's like throwing positive vibes out into the world, which I just love about all of this. So I will include everything about you, about Bailey, about the foundation, about the events and everything. Is there any kind of like final like words of wisdom that you just want to end the show with that we can share with the listeners?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that Bailey would say to me, if you want to get things done, ask my mommy.
Oh.
And that's sort of the mantra, the motto that continues to lead me
Mm-hmm.
is his guidance was definitely in his family. So whatever your home environment, your family unit may look like, there's definitely strength and blessings there. Even in the midst of despair, you can definitely take that one word, that one line, that one sentence, and just
Mm-hmm.
utilize that to propel you to the next level. And in the midst of tragedy, we continue to utilize the spirit of Bailey. If you want to get things done, ask my mommy. So his mom continued to just live for him, not just for him, but also for my other kids and for the
Mhm.
community and just everyone in general that can actually benefit from the legacy of Bailey Bullock.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story, and the work that you're kind of out there in the world doing. I know that there are going to be people that are going to listen to this that are there's going to be some nugget that you dropped or some gem that you dropped that you just, you're doing Patrice and you don't even realize the impact and the ripple effect that you're going to have just through this podcast as it kind of goes out to the global airwaves, across the world, really. And so thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for keeping Bailey's spirit alive. And I just say, I salute you. I can see how much love you have for your son. I really can. It
Thank-
shows.
Thanks for having me. I definitely appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. I hope you found a gem or two that will motivate you to change your mindset, pursue your dreams, and fulfill your soul's purpose. I believe that we can go farther and faster when we connect in the spirit of positivity and understand how we individually can serve humanity. The world needs more love, so keep shining, ladies. I can be found on my corner of the interwebs at tracym.com, and I'd love to connect on social. Just Google me and my SEO will tell you more about what I'm up to as I step into my purpose as a storyteller. I love you, brave girls. Now, it's time for you to step up your game and become the best possible version of you. I believe in you, and you've got this.